Okay, one thing I did forget to say on the last thing where I was describing 1973 being a depressing year. One of the things I really learned from all that is when my girlfriend and I were going together, we would drive in to see my parents or her parents fairly frequently. And one time we were driving by this one place, and there was a beautiful house on my left and a beautiful house on my right, and they had a lot of land. And I remember thinking, wow, that's success, to live in a house like that. Man, if I could live in a house like that, I would be successful. And one time when I was driving by there and I was just looking at the houses again and my girlfriend was with me, well, now I think God was talking to me, but back then I just had a thought, what if there was an earthquake? That whole house would be destroyed. The land would be destroyed. Or what if there was a fire? And for a brief moment I thought, what am I building my life on? What is my real definition of success? But it was a fleeting moment, but I remembered it later on. And in that year, 1973, that was very depressing, I came to realize I was building my whole life on another person. And when that didn't work out, what do I have left? In essence, I was building my life on a foundation that shifted. Biblically, we would say, I built it on shifting sand. Well, at the end of 1973, when I was about to get my degree, I moved home for a few weeks. I had acquired some furniture and I wanted my parents to store it. And it's furniture that I was going to use when I got married, but I told my parents, hey, give it away. I'm probably not going to get married, So when I did move home, in the few years previous to December of '73, my brother had become very radicalized politically. And he and my dad would get into these great big fights. And I mean, my dad was fairly conservative. I was liberal in high school, but I have since repented of that. My brother was radical. He was off the charts. And so when I moved home, my brother had moved home at the same time because he and his first wife had divorced. And we were at the dinner table one night, and this is when the whole Watergate thing was getting stirred up with President Nixon, and my dad just kind of said, doggone it, they want to wreck the greatest president the U.S. has ever had. And I thought, oh no, here we go again. And then my brother said, yeah, he said, he's our president. We really ought to pray for him. And I was like, say what? Now, I didn't say that, but that was what was going on in my head. And so after dinner, I pulled my mom aside and I said, what's with Tom? I mean, has he had a nervous breakdown? And she just had this twinkle in her eye and a little smile. And she said, no. She said, he accepted Jesus. And I thought, he has had a nervous breakdown. Oh, well. So I think the next day or two, I was driving him somewhere. And we drove by this accident. And Tom said, yeah, we should really pray for that guy. And I said, well, I kind of was thinking, well, that's a nice thing to do. Yeah. And then I realized, I don't know how to pray. I haven't prayed in years. So I just said some generic thing like, God, be with him. Boom, that was it. So about a minute later, I'm driving and I'm noticing my brother's not talking. And so I just glanced over at him. He's still praying for this guy, a guy that he doesn't even know. And I'm thinking, wow, this is unreal. Well, a couple days later, my brother invited me to his church that evening. And my response was, church? Tom, you know what I think of church. I know what you used to think of it. You know, and he said, yeah, I know. And he said, and I agree with you. But he said, this church is different. He said, it's not like our old church. He said, why don't you come? And I had to go out and do some clothes shopping for my trip. And so I just told him, I said, you know what, don't hold your breath. You know, I mean, it's just not my thing. And well, I was out shopping, and when I finished, I thought, you know, I haven't been as close to my brother in these last few years because he's been really radical, and I can't even talk with him without getting into an argument. And he's being really nice to me lately, and so I can't just stuff the gag reflex for an hour or two and go to his church? What does that say about me? So I decided, okay, he had told me where it was, and after I left the mall, I said, you know what, because I love my brother, I'm going to stop by his church. God had my number. He set up the whole scene. It was nighttime. It was snowing. There was no wind, so the snow was just lazily drifting down. The lamppost lights were shining on a blanket of snow. I mean, Norman Rockwell couldn't have done a better job. And as I was driving there, I was just thinking, well, here I am in a day or two, and I'm going to leave everything I've known, and I'm going to leave my entire life because of her. And, you know, I was really having a pity party. Well, I get there, I park, and as I'm walking in, I'm walking by a lighted wooden sign that was out in front of their church. And it was in the shape of a want ad. And it said, wanted, lonely, depressed, rejected people by our blessed Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I looked at that sign, and just for a second or two, I kind of teared up. I thought, wow. You know, could it be that somebody really loves me? Now, I knew my parents did, my brother did, my friends did, but if the one person you want to love you doesn't love you, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, nobody loves me. But I caught myself. I said, okay, Dave, shut the tear factory off. You know, you're in a vulnerable position, and, you know, don't give in to this religious fanaticism. So I continued to walk on, and as I'm walking up the steps to the church, I'm hearing rock music. Now, it was soft rock, but it was rock. In December 73, you didn't hear rock music in a church. And as I'm about to walk in, I'm thinking, you know, there's probably going to be a greeter here. And if it's anything like my old churches, he's going to have slick back hair, he's going to have an expensive suit, expensive shoes, a plastic smile on his face. He's going to give me a hearty handshake and say, well, we're really glad you're here. While what he really means is, I'm really glad your wallet is here because we need your money. You can tell I was really negative to church. So I opened up the door and I see a greeter. He doesn't have slicked back hair. He doesn't have an expensive suit. He doesn't have expensive shoes. And he doesn't have a plastic smile on his face. What he does have is worn out tennis shoes, jeans that are frayed, a flannel shirt, and from the neck and above, hair. Hair everywhere. He was a white guy, but he had a fro. I know he was a human being because I saw 2 eyes and a nose, and when he talked, I saw teeth. That was it. Everything else was hair. He took my hand, gave it a good handshake, looked me right in the eye, and said, man, I'm really glad you're here. I was the one that had to look away. I was not prepared for that. So I walk in the church, And as I'm walking down one of the pews, some long-haired hippie guy shoves a Bible at me, and he said, "Here, I notice you don't have a Bible. Would you like to read mine?" Now, he didn't know me from Adam. I could have taken that Bible, and over the next few minutes, I could have walked out and I could have sold it for $50. It was a nice Bible. But I said, no, that's all right. So I sat down, and the rock band is playing softly up on the stage in the background. And up on the stage is this big guy in coveralls, blue jean coveralls, flaming long red hair down to his shoulders, full beard and mustache that's also flaming red, talking about how he used to be the toughest bar fighter in the area. He said, when I would walk into a bar, people would see it was me, and they'd exit real quick, because they knew within a half an hour I'd be drunk, I'd be trashing the place, and the police would be called, and I'd get arrested yet again. And he said, I fought so many guys, I can't tell you how many. And he said, and then I met a man, and he beat me up with his love. And when I was down on the ground, and I had nowhere to look but up, I looked into the loving arms of Jesus, and I've never been the same since. And I'm like, am I on a different planet? Did I enter the Twilight Zone? I have never, ever heard this stuff. He was talking about Jesus like he was his best friend. Like he was this loving guy instead of this stern judge that I had grown up with. And then he said, if you want to meet this Jesus, come on down here to the front of the stage. And he said, invite Jesus into your life. And I saw numerous people get up and go down. And they were kneeling. Some of them were crying. Others were just kind of silently praying. Then I saw a bunch of other people go up, put their arms around these people and pray with them and lift up their hands. And it was amazing. I had never, ever seen this. Well, I saw my brother after the service, and he and a friend of his talked with me about Jesus. Now, I didn't accept Jesus that night, but the next couple days I left, and my brother and my mom, my dad said goodbye to me in the morning, and then he went to work. My brother and my mom prayed for me, and the prayer my brother gave was just a lovely prayer. I mean, he talked like Jesus was real, and like he was really going to protect me on my way out to California, and that I would find what I was searching for. So I left. I went down to Atlanta, Georgia to visit an old-time friend of mine, Uris Johansson. And in fact, he had been a roommate for a few months during 1973. I've known Uris probably since the 6th or 7th grade. And I almost stayed in Atlanta, but I thought, no, I said I would go to California. So I did. So I got out there and stayed with my best buddy and his wife, Tom Wilson, and they had a one-bedroom apartment, and I slept on the couch. And I will pick up that story on the next time, and I will also tell you the next time how I met Mom, my wife.